Welcome to the NextGen GTM podcast. In this series, we talk with experts to uncover the NextGen GTM tools and techniques that are driving measurable results for themselves and their clients. I'm really excited today. I've got Corey Smith on here, Managing Director at Hawk Media. Corey, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Well, hey, I don't always do this at the beginning of these, but you have a really interesting personal background that's kind of, led to where you are today. So before we get into the kind of nitty gritty and the business side of things, could you share a little bit of your personal story, maybe how you got to this point in your life and your career?
Yeah, well, it started when I was 4 years old. No, I have a strong, sales background. Even as a teenager, I was in sales. I don't consider myself a salesman, but that's kind of how I grew up. And at 16, I ran a printing press for my dad. My dad was in radio when I was in my early 20s, so I worked for him in radio promotions. And fast forward to about 2007, I actually got laid off from a job working in the office equipment space. And I had a friend who said, well, rather than going to work for someone else, why don't you start building websites? And I said, well, I've never built a website before. And he says, that's okay. You figure it out. And I've got 4 websites for you right now. Wow. And I said, oh, I guess I better learn how to do that.
And this was around what year? I'm thinking technology wise.
Yeah, 2007. Right. And I didn't know much. I mean, I had built a little personal WordPress site by then, but really nothing of substance. And so Tribute Media is the name of my agency. It was actually from a failed company that started years before and failed. It was my dad and I were trying to build online obituaries. So Tribute Media was the name of the agency. So I learned how to build websites. We standardized on Drupal at the time. We introduced marketing a few years later, and brought on HubSpot. We were HubSpot partners. Over the course of that time, I became multi-certified in HubSpot. 39 HubSpot certifications.
HubSpot. I'm thinking timing wise. I mean, you must be early.
So HubSpot started actually about the same time we did as an agency at Tribute Media. We brought on HubSpot in about 2013 or so. And so I've got we've done development and marketing with HubSpot. I actually left my agency in about 21 with the intent that one of my partners was going to buy the agency from me. And that never worked out. And January of 23, last year, Hawk Media approached me and wanted to buy my agency. And I had always planned on,
I mean, really.
Yeah, I had always planned on selling and getting out, but Hawk put together a pretty compelling reason for me to stay. I actually bought my partners out before Hawk bought us. So I bought my partners, they exited, and then June 1st. So here, right about now, it's been a year, is my anniversary. Wow. June 1st of 23 was when I became a part of the Hawk family, or as they say, the nest. And in the last year has been a great year. We were a very small agency, and as at Tribute Media, we would focus on very custom, very simple kinds of things. About $1 million agency was about where we were, and building principally in Drupal and HubSpot, and then doing inbound marketing, executing on HubSpot's approach to marketing. And then Hawk brings a whole new world. Hawk is a $30 or $40 million agency with many departments. So one department is going to have more employees than my entire company did. But they're great specialties. And my position has evolved over the last year quite a bit. And now I settled in on business development and consulting. And that's where I kind of fit.
That's awesome. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. And so now you're in this business development and consulting space. Obviously, every time, right, you're talking to a client, they are new and unique and different and have special challenges, right? But we all know there are themes to everything. So I'm curious, in this kind of crazy sort of stage that we're in right now, right, with like all the hype and things going on, a couple of things. One, what are the common problems that your clients are tending to come you with, kind of in a bucket area? And are there any tools, processes, products you find yourself regularly recommending to these clients?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when I started Tribute Media, I wanted to lean into something that I knew really well. I came from the office equipment space prior to starting my agency, and this gentleman I mentioned who helped me start, he started selling websites in that office equipment space. So the first 100 or so websites that we built were all in the office equipment space. And there are agencies out there that continue very successfully to do niche marketing, and our niche was the office equipment space.
Right.
And what we learned through that process is business to business, most people aren't as different as their competitors as they think they are. We would find, people would say, "Oh, we're so different, we're so unique. We do," and I could probably fill in the blank. "Oh, you do this, 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 and this." "Oh, yeah, how did you know?" "This is because every other of your competitors talk that way." And I think that the same thing is true on the marketing agency side, is the core things that we do are almost always the same. Every client needs three things. And it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, how you do it. You need three things in the digital marketing space. You need search, you need social, and you need email. And everything can be stuffed into one of those three categories. Now, the formula of what you do more of in one area or less of in another area might be unique to you, might be unique in your market, in your industry. But if you need affiliates and influencers, that fits into the social category. If you need, content writing, that probably could fit in each of the three categories. Do you have products that you sell online in a direct-to-consumer capacity? Then your email might look more like shopping cart abandonment and those kinds of things. Everything it's all the same building blocks, regardless of what you do. The secret sauce for your agency is how you organize those things. So as an example, one product that I recommend often, whether you use it with me as an agency, as a marketing strategist, or you use it on your own, is hotjar.com. Hotjar.com allows us to see, and there's other competitors. Lucky Orange is one of their competitors, and there's a few others out there. They all do a lot of the same things, but they do visitor recordings where you can see how people are using the website. You can do surveys, and you can see heat maps and how all those things fit together. If I want to understand how to best improve the user experience, then using a tool like Hotjar is always going to be my go-to. The same thing, Google Analytics is always my go-to. The way I write content, I always do the same kinds of things, but packaging them uniquely is always a secret sauce for the agency.
That's awesome. Well, so I think you've mentioned some tried and trues, right? But I can also tell you're one of those people who's obviously been on the front line in the new way of doing things from a very early place. Hawk Media obviously pushing really hard into Hawk AI. Moving into this kind of AI side of things, and as we think about almost, emerging tools, can you talk a little more about what you guys are doing specifically at Hawk, and little more broadly about where you see AI expanding to in this kind of go-to-market sales type of space?
Yeah, Hawk. Well, AI has two main components, as you're probably aware. You've got generative AI, and that's what everybody is familiar with. We're generating pictures, we're generating content, and then we also have predictive AI. Mm-hmm. Generative AI is helpful, but it's not the panacea that many want you to believe. There are certain hallmarks to every AI article that is created. In a fast-paced world is a very common thing in our, in our growing environment, these kinds of terms, and it becomes very easy to see. And even pictures, there are certain telltale signs. That may change over the course of the next few years, but it hasn't changed much from that perspective in the last few years. It's the same kinds of issues. You still need a human mind. Predictive AI, I think, has a lot more immediate marketing capabilities than anything generative could be. Predictive AI allows us to see effectively into the future of what could possibly be. Hawk does have the Hawk AI product, which is pretty amazing. We have the ability to tie in many different platforms. We can tie in Shopify and Google Analytics and your social feeds and a whole host of other tools. And right now we have about 8,000 brands or so that utilize that. And we gather the metadata from those, and we create we have a predictive algorithm that tells us what possibly could be if we look. And one of the ways we look at that is benchmarking against competitors as well as non-competitors that might be in the similar maybe follower count or similar ad spend count or whatever the metric is that we want to measure against. The easiest example that I can give of what those metrics could look like, checking for those anomalies, is if ad spend in my competitor space increases by 20% and I've increased by 10%, now I've got an anomaly, I've got a variation, and I can start to evaluate some of the other metrics to see, is my increase less good, or am I missing out on opportunity? Then steps in the predictive AI. And the predictive AI especially works well in the direct-to-consumer space, where I can say, hey, if I turn up the knob on Facebook advertising, I can increase my sales by X%. If I turn the knob on Google advertising, I can increase sales. And all of that's tied through. And Hawk AI is a pretty amazing tool that aggregates all those features together.
And how do you distinguish then between, say what you would call AI and just like some advanced statistics, right? Just doing some linear regression on a lot of these things.
Yeah, I think the big distinction is that benchmarking of industry is going to be advanced statistics, but the predictive component of what you should do based on that's going to be utilizing predictive AI. I do think that there is a blurry line between the two. And I think even if you look at Google Analytics, there's going to be a blurry line when they predict things that you should do. That hopefully is using AI. AI is going to give you a better result than just using an algorithm to predict. AI is going to be smart enough to, or should be smart enough to learn. But I do think there's a blurry line between the two often, at least from a consumer's perspective.
I think that's totally fair. And ultimately, right, the real question we should probably be asking ourselves is getting our clients the results, right? Regardless of how we label it, is the math tying out? Are the predictions happening? And it sounds like what you guys are doing, it's working really, really well there.
It is. We are a top performing performance marketing agency. I mean, that's the way we think about it. And we don't like to do business with people if we can't help them grow. If we don't help them generate a positive return on investment, then we don't want them as a client, because that's not fair to them and it's not fair to us. It just doesn't work. We want to be efficient with their dollars. They put a lot of effort into this. I was talking to a client this morning that we generate leads for them. Hawk AI is a part of understanding how to manage the meta advertising for them, and they can handle about 100 leads a week. They got about 175 this week and asked us to pause everything. We're almost doing too well for them, but
that's great.
It's a problem, but it's a good problem, right? I want to have too many leads that I need to follow up on, and that those predictive algorithms as a part of the predictive AI help us know what knobs to turn and how to work through those.
That's really cool. A little bit tangential too. So you've been with HubSpot from a very early place, right? You're kind of seeing what's happening in AI in different places, right? You're setting up all these things. What's your take actually on everything that's going on with what, say HubSpot's doing with AI, with Google potentially looking to acquire HubSpot, right? Like there's a lot of interesting developments going on in the space. Do you have any kind of predictions for where this is trending towards, this broader kind of market craziness?
My wife often reminds me that at the beginning of the early 90s, I said, "Oh, the internet's not going anywhere. It's not going to happen." And she especially likes to remind me, considering my career in this space. So I'm not sure how predictive I am, but my current thinking is that it's going to be a lot longer for AI to take over marketing. I think as AI becomes more sophisticated, buyers are going to become more sophisticated. And
Right.
part of my thinking for that is that buyers have become more sophisticated as marketing has become more sophisticated, as opportunities for tech understanding and for research. The nature of how we sell today in either particularly in a business to business environment, but even in a direct to consumer environment, has evolved as these things have come to play. What I think, and I kind of touched on this before, what I think that the software engineers and the scientists and that are building AI right now, that are teaching AI and training it, their end goal is that it takes over everything. And even Elon Musk has said that, ultimately the only reason why you'll work is because you want to.
Right.
Computers and AI will take over all those functions. I hope that's not the case. I think we drive value from effort. We drive value from work. And I don't think that it'll happen as quickly, even though things are moving fast, because of that very idea that we are more sophisticated as the tech becomes more sophisticated. New opportunities will come around. And I look back to something as simple as an elevator. Elevators used to be pretty complicated to run. We needed an elevator operator, and they became more and more self-service. Cashiers, yes, it's annoying. Cashiers are going away. More self-service is coming, but you still need someone to build those machines. It doesn't mean that labor is going away completely. It's just shifting into other areas. And so I think it'll be a while before we get there. I think AI, if you're not using AI right now to generate ideas and to generate concepts that you can iterate on, I think you're missing the mark in marketing. But don't think it's going to take over. I don't think it's going to take over in the next couple of years. But my wife tells me I'm wrong all the time, and I might be.
For what it's worth, I'm with you. I remember being at a conference of all these brilliant thinkers, 5-6 years ago, maybe it was a little longer. And they were like, by 2020, 2021 at the latest, you'll only drive if you want to, right? Like the cars will just take you everywhere. And we've seen just how woefully far like we are still from that in a lot of ways, right? I mean, we're definitely getting closer. The trajectory is there, but there's some step change in the technology that still needs to happen. And I do agree with you on the buyer sophistication. For what it's worth, the way we're even thinking about things at Scheduler is, and I disagree slightly with Elon here on some of these things, right? Only work if you want to work. That business is still done at a people level, right? So like even with Scheduler, right? Like our goal with what we're building is it would never have this meeting for us. It would never be able to do that, but to take away all the barriers to it, to make sure that you and I show up so that we can just focus on the human across the room, that I do hope we're able to automate away drastically, right? Like anything that is not in many ways life-giving to a person and the type of work that a human is really only specifically geared to do. I hope we can get rid of a lot of that, right? There are a lot of other things I'd rather do with my time, again, with people.
I think the best AI, and I actually think your Scheduler product is a pretty good example of this. I think the best AI is the AI that we know is AI, but because of the way it interacts, we're okay that it's not human.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. I love that.
So I think about, when you and I met and our first schedule was using Scheduler AI, it was obvious immediately that it was AI, but it was so helpful and so beneficial to the way it was utilized that there was no reason for me to be concerned. But when I get a call from a robocaller, an AI robocaller, I can tell it's an automated AI. I can tell in the first, couple of seconds that it's a robot AI caller trying to pretend that it's human. And that's when we have a problem, is when we're interacting with an AI that obviously is missing something, but trying to pretend it's not.
That's a great distinction. It's a debate we've even had a lot here where, a lot of clients have asked us, hey, instead of, scheduler at scheduler.ai or scheduler at their company, right? If they have us on a custom domain for them, can I make it Amy? Can I make it John? And we actually went back to the guy who really kicked off this whole kind of even AI scheduling thinking, Dennis Mortensen. He had X.ai back when that was a thing. And we were like, hey, people are asking us to bring back Amy and Andrew and these other things. And he goes, don't do it. He's like, I've got all the data on it. Don't do it. Keep it scheduler. You want it to be honest with people. They want to have the right expectation set of what it can do. And the minute you start to elevate past that, you are going to frustrate people. And to your point, then you lose that utility, right? Mm-hmm. It's like it's there, and its ability to do that may expand to the point where, maybe we do call it Amy or Andrew at some point. But even within that, you want to be honest with the person on the other side, right? In a world of all the deep fakes and all the what is real and not, I think to your point that just like, don't pretend to be something that you're not. If you're going to be an AI, be a useful AI, be in your lane, accomplish your job, help us streamline this process, but don't pretend to be something you're not, or you're just going to tick me off.
Yep. And I think that authenticity is important across everything that we do. People prefer authentics. I mean, when we think about, regardless of your political leanings, the biggest complaint about politics on all sides is a lack of authenticity, a lack of realism, a lack of connection to the realities of the human condition. And we end up getting frustrated. It's a vocal minority that, and when we're marketing, when we're trying to teach our prospective clients what we do, why we do it, the more authentic we are, the more likely it is that people will gravitate towards us. The more we can connect with people on, as Simon Sinek puts it, their why, the more likely it is that people will gravitate towards us and be a part of what we're trying to do.
And do you think that's only going to become stronger in the coming
days? I think
days?
So. I think the expectation for authenticity is going to increase. The more there are always going to be the people that are going to fall for it. I see it on social media all the time. Look at this amazing picture, and it takes 4 seconds to point out to them, well, that's an AI generated picture, right? And or that's a fake story, or whatever the case might be. There's always going to be people that struggle, but I think by and large, particularly this rising generation, these digital natives, they're going to identify those more rapidly as we go forward. It might be us gray hairs that struggle a bit, but yeah, I think we're going to get more sophisticated as options become more sophisticated.
That's really interesting. I definitely agree with you. I think we kind of like have to, right? I mean, I'm sure there will be people, right, and there will always be opportunities for folks to take really early advantages of trends and possibly profit quickly. How do you even think about advising your clients in terms of like, hey, this is happening in the market, you could jump on it, you could be a first mover, right? But like long-term, midterm, there could be some authenticity downsides. Like, where do you take the gains on some of these rising side of things and balance, is this going to affect me longer term with my perception?
So I tend to be a bit more pragmatic in the way I do things. I'm not a bleeding edge kind of a guy. I bought my first iPhone in 2011. Well, if you know the dates, that was 4 years later. My first Apple Watch was a free one that I won at a conference because I was not convinced that I would ever see the value in spending $400 or $500 on a watch. And this is my fifth one that I bought now.
Oh, wow.
So I tend to be a little more pragmatic. I do think that there are some opportunities to jump on bandwagons early, but there's also great risk. If you'd been the one to jump on the bandwagon of beta tapes before VHS took over, then you wouldn't have been happy. You'd have a library of beta tapes and no beta players, although VHS has gone the way of the dodo bird as well. And I think that we see that in a lot of ways, that things are going to be the next new great thing, but is it? If you are an early adopter, then you just have to make a decision of which ones you're going to take the risk on. And that really is what it is. It's a risk. Are you going to risk? If I'd been an early adopter in Bitcoin, boy, if I would have bought, $100 of Bitcoin when I first heard about it, boy,
we probably wouldn't be having this conversation.
Or it would be a very different conversation, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. Right.
And so I'm proud to say that I bought Bitcoin at 34,000. And then it went down, and then I sweated for 2 years, and then it went back up. So that's how I buy. Buy high, sell low is kind of the mantra there. So I think about the trends that we see in marketing. In Google search, we call it chasing the algorithm, right? We're trying to stay one step ahead of Google so that we are always prepared for when the next algorithm change comes. But we don't know what's going to happen. So I don't tend to counsel my clients on jumping on trends. I say, let's focus on what works. If you want to jump on a trend, let's be cautious and let's test it. Let's make sure. And a perfect example is, there was a trend, and we see it less and less because the data proves otherwise. There was a trend for a long time of having these rotating slideshows on your homepage. The data proved that they were not effective. And so I always tell my clients, don't do it. If you want conversions, the data is something like only about 94% or so, if I remember correctly, ever look at the second slide. And of those, less than 1%, let me start over. 94% of people never look at the second slide. And of those people that actually look at the slide, less than 1% ever click on the second slide or beyond. So, and you think about, Donald Miller and what he does with StoryBrand is pretty powerful. It's a one clear message, not a bunch of rotating messages, one clear message to establish who your hero is, which is your client, and what the problem is that they have and how you are their guide in giving them a plan. And so there are certain bits of marketing that have proven false. And you can also see that when the trends change, particularly when the trends change quickly, then that means that trend must not have been super successful. Everybody thought video backgrounds on pages was going to be super successful. Well, the big companies aren't doing them like they used to. So that probably is a pretty good indicator that the data says that it doesn't work as well as people thought.
Fascinating. Follow the data.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, Corey, it was really awesome having you on today. Anything else that we didn't cover that you're like, hey, you guys need to listen up and think about this?
No, I think so. I think if I was to leave some parting thoughts, I'm a businessman first. I'm a web guy second. I think that too often we lose sight on what our business goal is, and we want to chase this shiny marketing object. Everything should start with your business goal. Then your marketing goals need to support your business goals. And then your marketing tactics need to support your marketing goals. And if you do it in any other order, then it doesn't matter because you won't see success. You'll continue to wonder why you're not getting leads. You'll continue to wonder why you're not getting, the progress you want. You're going to continue to wonder why things, why your vectors aren't aligned, why you're not moving in the most optimal direction. It doesn't mean you won't see success. You just won't maximize your success. So focus on your business goals first, and marketing goals second, and marketing tactics third.
I love it. That's great. Great advice. Don't lose sight of what matters.
Yeah.
Corey, thank you so much. Really appreciate your perspective on everything. And we'll kind of have to see how some of this stuff shakes out and whether these predictions go better than the last ones.
We'll see if my wife reminds me in 20 years that I was wrong again.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening today. You can catch this one and all the rest on our channels, and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again, Corey.
Thank you.